so tempted to leave with you. So she.
Good evening and welcome to the March 19th meeting of the Guilderland Board of Education. Would you all please silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda this evening is the showcase of student work, and this evening we have the Vex Robotics team here.
Yes, it will be my pleasure to introduce our award-winning Vex Robotics team who went, I won't steal your thunder, I'll let you guys tell. We have Jennifer Bartlett, who is going to be the spokesperson for the team. So Jennifer, why don't you come up to the podium and bring your colleagues?
I'm Jennifer Bartlett. I'm president of the Vex Robotics Club. I've been on this team for 3 years. I'm a senior now.
Make sure you use the mic.
Hi, I'm Anjani Ramayanam. I'm in 11th grade, and this is my 3rd year in the club.
My name is Gary Levove. This is my 2nd year doing Vex Robotics, and I'm also captain and driver of the B team because we have 2 teams here.
Awesome.
Hello, my name is Cameron Myram. I'm a senior, and this is my 4th year on the team.
I'm Sierra Liada. This is my 3rd year on the team, and I'm a senior. I help with organization.
I'm Brianna Votis. This is my 3rd year on the team, and I'm the vice president.
Alright, so basically what we do, we design the robot, we build it, we program it ourselves. We do everything from scratch. That's a picture of our team photo.
So every year there's a different game for Vex. This year's game was Turning Point, so there are a lot of different things to be turned to your color, depending on what team you're on. So there's different caps to turn over and flags that you shoot the balls at.
This is a cap right here, and so you just choose your color. And the flags are on the swivel, so they're like perpendicular, so you can switch to your color balls.
Yep. One of the materials that we use to practice is we have a whole field in our shop, which the school provides for us, which we're really lucky to have. It helps us so much, especially for the autonomous period, which is when we program the robot to do something without driver control. So we really need the dimensions of the field to practice doing that. And so I'm in charge of building the field, and it really helps to have that as a practicing tool.
So that picture is of our first robot that we ever built. We changed a lot of things along the way. Initially, we only had a cap flipper, and then we went to Lansingburg, and we realized a lot of things that are flags, and we are not earning enough points. So we decided that we needed to have a mechanism to have balls be shot out of our robot, and so that helped us in bettering our robot and creating a ball shooter.
As I said, Guilderland has 2 teams. So we have the A team, which is our club team, so anybody can join that. And then we also have our B team, which is built by the Principles of Engineering Project Lead the Way class. So during the class, we designed this robot as kind of a big project, because a lot of the stuff on this robot are really basic staples of engineering, like gear ratios, levers, pulleys, sprockets, all these simple things. And Lansingburg was really a wake-up call for the B team, to be honest, because it's a lot of fun to build a robot in class, but the biggest thing that we have to focus on is quality control. It doesn't matter how amazing your robot is when it works once. It's better that your robot is amazing and works every time. And so BT at Lansingburg, we had a robot that, in my mind, was really, really great, and that placed 44th. So you can see me huddled over it, looking very concerned. And frankly, that robot, we went a long way in design. So for my sanity, I like to count drivetrains. So drivetrains are just the frames that the rest of the robot goes on. And this is kind of really important for mobility, because your robot is great, but it does need to move around. That's kind of part of the game. And so that's drivetrain right there. That's drivetrain 6 of 27. So in between Lansingburg and States, we had to do a lot of refinement, and most of that refinement was focused on quality control. I'd build these really amazing, beautiful drivetrains that would fall apart within half an hour. So that's what I really focused on during that team. And so the Project Lead the Way course, everybody built their own aspect of the robot. So there's a 6-bar linkage on there, which is a really fancy term for something that's really simple. It moves the claw up and down. And so somebody else designed and built the 6-bar linkage, as well as the pickup system for these caps. You can put these caps on these high poles. And so I focused on drivetrain, and somebody else did 6-bar linkage. And really the beauty of the Project Lead the Way class is that we were doing all the calculations. When I joined the robotics team, when I built stuff, I would kind of hope for the best and not really plan it out. But with the Project Lead the Way team, you really do all the math behind it. And when something works, you're much more surprised because you did the math behind it.
So for our robot, building-wise, I worked specifically on the drivetrain. Originally, we only had 1 wheel on each quadrant of the robot, so we only had 4 wheels total. We noticed that it was kind of hard, getting onto the platform when parking and turning, so we added a second wheel on the bottom, which helped with the turning and the stability of the robot, actually. This is our pickup. We had Cameron Burgick work on that. He's not here today, but he worked on the ball pickup. Basically, it just sucks the ball up and puts it into the launcher. We also have this flipper. Do you want to speak about that?
Yes. We have this flipper. So during the competition, we noticed that a lot of teams were able to put caps on poles, and that's one thing that we weren't able to do. But we realized that instead of spending a lot of time trying to put caps on poles, it was easier to knock them off. So we decided to focus on that aspect of it. And so we found that it was much easier to use the flipper to knock the caps off of the poles, but there was short poles and taller poles, and we were only able to knock them off of the shorter poles, but we were lucky because not many teams were able to put them on the high poles anyway.
So for programming, we have a group of people who go and try to make this robot where it actually can respond. It doesn't matter how much you build it. If there's no controls, it can't move. So from what we did with this, we have the collective group, and we go and program different things like, oh, this joystick moves the robot forward. This button makes the shooter work. And then there's also the autonomous mode, where there's no driver input whatsoever, which is the most difficult, and that field really makes it so much useful. Well, so much easier to do. With the new system, the V5, there's been a change in the programming language. We had to learn a whole new one from scratch this year. And there's also the new sensors like the vision sensor and these motors that have the integrated circuits. So we can actually calculate RPMs just based off of it's built in. We use the vision sensor in the match to actually go and find the flags, center onto them, and shoot them with the ball, making it so much easier to aim and score points with less time being spent just going around trying to angle it correctly.
If I may interject quickly, about the parts with the motors, knowing what speed it's rotating at seems like a really simple thing. Like, you should know what speed your motors are rotating at. But the truth is that with the Vex V4 system, you didn't know always in which position the shaft inside the motor is. So the motor just turns it. And so you need a motor controller, because motors are stupid, and you got to tell them what to do really specifically. And with the new V5, the motor controller is integrated, so you know where your shaft is at all times, which is incredibly useful. And there's a new vision sensor, so you can actually see. With the V4, you just program to do something like mechanically, and you do it blind. You'd have no clue what's going on, and it would always screw up spectacularly. And it screws up a little less with the new V5 system, because you actually have a camera, and you actually know which direction your motors are pointed.
These These are some screenshots of different codes we had. The one to the left is from the A-Robots code. It's specifically showing how the ramp, well, this version of the robot had a ramp that they used to lower it down onto the platform to prevent them from being moved off that center platform, to increase the friction. And over to the right is a picture of the vision sensor code on the B robot to help center.
Right, so this is a CAD model, which I recently found out it stands for computer-aided design. And so there's this program we use that if you take the design and drawing Project Lead the Way class, this is design and drawing right there. And so through the class we learned how to use these models because all the pieces, each screw and each nut on this robot is available online for download. And this really helps for planning because you can really visualize the robot and you can tell to a group of people, okay, this is what I want to build. You can't just show a group of people what you're thinking just by looking at them. So this is really helpful. Also, this is really helpful because Vex Robotics, all the pieces of metal ideally should be at 90-degree angles. And when you put anything at an angle, for example, that flywheel, it has a piece of metal at about 45-degree angle. The holes don't always line up. So with the CAD, you'll know if they line up or not before you build it and before you spend time and resources doing it.
Over the course of this season, our team has faced many challenges while we're competing and while we are building and refining our design for this robot. One of the biggest things we had to stay on top of was our time management. It may seem like a long time, 4 months that you have to build from the beginning of the school year to December when the competition season starts. But as you start to do it, you realize you don't really have as much time as you think you do. We meet 3 to 4 times a week for 45 minutes a day. And if we can't get started quickly within a meeting and cleaned up quickly, we end up losing a lot of time trying to pull the team together and do those things. So to stay on top of that, we created meeting schedules daily for all of our meetings, and we also use both Google Classroom and a texting app called WhatsApp to stay in touch with our club officers and to make sure we know what we're going to do each meeting. A building challenge we faced was keeping the robot stable. It had a lot of jerky movements early on, and it would also tip off of the platform if another robot put too much pressure on it while it was trying to climb and push us off. So we learned how to use the new V5 system to put a brake on the motors so we could lock our robot in place and keep our robot from being pushed off. And to fix the jerkiness problems, we had to fine-tune our design to make sure everything was at the perfect angle and everything was fastened down. That was another thing. We had to remember to tighten everything before every match or things would go flying off during competition. Organization was something we struggled with early on. We had to spend quite a few meetings, actually, mid-season, just refocusing on reorganizing the entire shop and labeling all of our parts and labeling everything with our school and what letter robot it was on, and making sure everyone on the team knew where everything was supposed to be stored, because what was happening was we were having things put away in the wrong place, and we were wasting time by losing parts or not being able to find things that we needed to complete the objectives for that day. And as for the objectives, some days we actually had difficulty following our schedules, either because they were too ambitious or because people lost focus. So over the course of the season, we've really tried to understand each other and to put aside our differing opinions to try and work together towards a team goal to get these robots completed and competition ready.
Also, adding on to what she was saying, with time management and stuff like that, it's treated more as like a sports team because of the big commitment that it takes to join this club. Like, we meet on Wednesdays sometimes, or Fridays, even like after school when technically like there isn't any, to like work on this. We work outside of school together, like in the group chat, like Brianna said. We text constantly, like trying to figure out what we need to do for the next day, planning ahead, things like that, so that we're prepared when we come in and that we're ready to work more efficiently and get things done.
recently found out that some schools actually have Vex Robotics listed as a sport, and they get the varsity letter for that, which we didn't know about that, which was interesting for us. So that is also something I wanted to add.
So here we have the one on the left is the one that's standing here right now, and a lot of changes were happened to improve the design. And the one on the right we sadly lost because I took it apart. We only have a certain amount of new V5 motors, and the new V4 motors are really great, but that's not what we use on the robot. And so when we train our programmers, we try to train them with the system we have, and it's better to train them with something simple at first than to introduce to them a robot with 8 motors that does all these fancy stuff. And so this robot, is very different than the one at Lansingburg. After Lansingburg, me and my team, we stripped down the robot completely. We only left the things that we liked. And so the only things that we liked was the drivetrain. We had a really good drivetrain using an idea just from another robotics league. There's a robotics league called First Robotics, and it's they have heavier, bigger robots, and they also have really good ideas about what to do. And so from First Robotics, there's this thing called a California drive, which seems exotic, I know, but it's pretty simple. It has 3 wheels on every side, and the center wheel is a little bit lower than the other wheels, the central wheels. And so what this does is that when it climbs onto the platform, when it approaches the platform, it does it so that all 3 wheels are in contact with something and not slipping. Because when the wheels are on the ground and they run into the platform, they just spin. They don't do anything. And so with that little bit of clearance, it's a lot easier to zoom right onto the platform, for lack of a better term. And also with turning, it really helps because it actually lifts up the robot because it tips back and forth, and it lifts up the robot and it turns. When you're climbing, you want a lot of friction, and when you're turning, you want almost no friction. And so the California drivetrain that we built really helped guarantee that. And as you can see by Queensbury, we had the 2-wheel thick drivetrain for climbing in certain areas in the back. And so for Queensbury, the B team really focused on having a robot that didn't fall apart. Frankly, the B team robot on Queensbury was designed to do a lot less. But what it did very well. And that was much more important. I would much rather have a decent robot that can do things decently 75% of the time than a really good robot that can do things really well 10% of the time. And so this was really important, and the B team actually won the tournament at Queensbury, and our A team placed number 2. So Gilderland was 1 and 2 at Queensbury. Awesome. And so that's where we qualified for states. And here's a video. If we skip to the end here. Alright, so as we can see on the central platform, those are actually 2 Gilderland robots, because Gilderland was pitted against each other. And so that's that California drive on the left here, the little robot, and the big beefy robot is my friend's robot that he used to bully me during the match. But it was kind of like Rocky, you know, after he loses at Lansingburg and he goes and he runs in the streets. And even though he's smaller than the other guy, he's still, this is my Rocky moment.
It's fitting that the 2 learn foul.
Those are the famous platforms that we were talking about earlier. It's kind of hard to visualize if I keep saying platform and you've never seen the platform. So that's called a center park, where what my robot did, and that's on the center, and that's worth 9 points. And in terms of this competition, that's huge. Every cap flipped to your color, and on every high post, and every flag flipped to your color is only about, like, I think 36 points. So parking on that platform, if the other team got every other thing, you still made up 1/4 of that points. and we got a team park. So in this competition, you're partnered with one other team. And so the B team was partnered with Lake George, and Lake George's robot is on the other platform, and that also gives you additional parts. The A team was partnered with Kaizen from Granville, Team 4305A, and Kaizen is a really good team. It's team, last year at the World Robotics Competition, they got 25th, I believe. And if you go back like 10 seconds, you can see how we break Kaizen's robot and it falls off the back of the platform. But we're good friends with Kaizen, so they weren't too angry. Not doing anything, that's Kaizen. It's hide in the front of its claws. So they didn't get the partner climb, and we did, and that's really the reason why the B team won over the A team.
So when we went to States, we came, well, first there's like the elimination rounds. There were 2 brackets. They were in a different bracket than us. There was the engineering and the technology bracket. We were technology. We came like 4th seed overall in our bracket. So basically what happens, like, you go down the list of alliances and you get to choose who you're partnered with for like the matches following. We made it to the quarterfinals. Fortunately, we lost there, but I mean, it was a good round. We were also part of the largest states competition in the United States, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, it's the most like amount of teams that they've ever had at a competition, so that's pretty neat.
Alright, so we would like to show you the operation of the robot. Great to talk about it, but so this is the A-team robot, and so this can pick up and it can shoot balls. Don't shoot at them. Alright, shoot a ball open.
All right.
So this is a punch design. So essentially it pulls something back, it releases it on rubber bands. And if you're an engineer, that's a rack and pinion slip, which is like a famous thing for building punches. And then we can also use our intake to flip these caps to the right color. And so I'd love to show you the B-team robot, but I took it apart, like I said. And so my excuse for that is that we built this thing, which we're going to use to train our programmers. And this is called a Mechnum drivetrain, which has these special wheels, so you can move side to side laterally. And so this is on carpet, so it kind of tilts a little bit. But on the game field tiles, it moves side to side almost perfectly. So even though it can move side to side, it can still drive forward, so it can still turn and whatnot. So it's like a high mobility design. And the reason we use this drivetrain to train our programmers is because this drivetrain is a little bit more difficult to program than this one. This drivetrain has motors actually spinning towards themselves, whereas this drivetrain will almost always have motors spinning in the same direction. And so just conceptually, it's a lot more difficult. And this also has a vision sensor on, which right now we don't have calibrated because our new engineers are still working the problem very difficultly. And so this really is what we're talking about for the autonomous period, where it ideally would line up with the color, because it uses the camera to spot a color and it censors it against the color. But we don't want to do it for them, so we're kind of letting the new recruits do that part of the program.
You guys have any questions?
I'm just so way over me.
I've got tons of questions. You had 2 different groups. Is it my understanding that one group was a club sport, so to speak, and the other one are people that were taking Project Lead the Way?
Yeah, principles of engineering.
Yes, so anyone can join the club team, but then we had an additional robot built solely by members of the club who were also taking Principles of Engineering, and we used that robot in place of that class's project. So we had class time to work on this robot, and we got a grade for it.
Okay.
There are people in the class who work in the robot who aren't part of their club, but their contributions weren't often as great because they didn't have experience with the Vex material. It really takes a small adjustment period, and so really the bulk of the robot ended up being built by people who did Vex Robotics and the project, because they got introduced to Vex, so the designs were a little bit better, but really the entire class prototyped for both sections of their principles of engineering.
Can you describe a little bit the principles of engineering? What brought you to the course? What level? Are you sophomores or juniors when you take it? What promoted your interest in it?
So, Principles of Engineering has one prerequisite course, and that is Drawing and Design for Production, which is also a PLTW course. It's the entry-level technology course for the school. So if you take that, you're set on a 4-class course for your 4 years of high school. There's also civil engineering and digital electronics. You can either take civil before you take Principles of Engineering, or you can elect to take Principles of Engineering your sophomore year, which is what Gary here did.
I'm a sophomore, and Brianna already took civil engineering.
So I'm a junior. And that course uses Vex parts to teach many of its first and second quarter lessons. So it really lends itself well to having a robot as its spare project for those interested.
Right, I took the course last year actually, and they do a lot with programming, so you get to learn a little bit of both sides. Because right now we have like the team split into 3 different sections. We have the building team, the programming, and like more administrative section. But like the good part about the class is you get to learn about like everything as a whole. You get to learn about how to build, designing it, like figuring out what works best, and programming it.
I'm very intrigued with your idea of a letter for this club. I mean, as you do for sports. I mean, you guys did the same thing that a soccer team or something would do. You went to states, you had great accomplishments, and I don't know how we can talk about it, but I like that idea.
Figure that out.
Yes.
A lot of people, it's really great because it's after school, and sports is after school. So me, Jen, Sierra, we all go to robotics, and then right after that we go to sports practice. And so it's really good that the school does Vex Robotics and not the first robotics league, because even though it takes a lot of time, it takes less time than first robotics. So you can really become a well-rounded person. You won't just be a lab rat working in the lab, you also run afterwards.
Yes. But these are very difficult competitions. All of our events are on Saturdays or Sundays, and with travel time included, they can run anywhere from 12 to 14 hours, with a good 9 or 10 of those hours being spent actively on the competition floor, working with your team, strategizing, driving your robot, fixing your robot. It's really a lot of work, and we love it so much, and it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Also, Vex tends to be a lot more social than even doing team sport. I run, and I've never spoken to anybody during but I have spoken to people during robotics. So that's true.
And it's great too, because like you meet other teams, you meet other people there, you get ideas, you like become friends, you like create a bond, like joining it. And
yeah, so I actually became very good friends with one of the two best teams in New York, not because they were the 2 best teams, but because they had nice people, and I still talk to those people today. I have never spoken to another racer.
Yes, this year our team created an Instagram account for our team that you can follow, and through that we have met several other Vex Robotics teams from across the country, and in fact other countries, that we've made friends with over the years and even met up with at some competitions. So it's very cool to meet people from all over the place and then be able to compete against them.
So we do still have a lot of freshmen milling around, but we try to tell a lot of people no.
Also, this club is really good because it's like an introductory course to robotics. It's really easy to pick up a Vex thing and go, okay, how does this fix together? Because all the holes on Vex, they're pre-cut. See how they're perforated like steel aluminum? For other robotics competitions, you have to drill those yourself. That can be really intimidating, and it's really difficult to get into. So with the other robotics leagues, you get teams that are oftentimes mostly seniors. And right now, the people standing here, half of us are not seniors. So that's really good that we have a future and not just a really good senior year that burns out immediately afterwards. Any other questions? Technical questions?
Technical. No technical. Those of you who are seniors, are you going into engineering or some other totally unrelated field?
actually, yeah.
I'm going into a science field.
I'm going to computer science.
Okay. And now, does your teacher go with you to these competitions for 10 or 12 hours on weekends?
Yes, Mr. Ball and our other advisor, Miss Gannon, go with us to competitions, but they're largely student-led. They come down to cheer us on and give us advice, but for the most part, it's just us running our robots in the pit and working on repairs and making sure everything runs smoothly.
So, Mr. Ball is great. He only comes down to give me dark chocolate and to help me solve really big problems. So, the less I see Mr. Ball during competitions, the better and the worse. The worse is I don't get chocolate, but the better because I don't have any big earth-shattering problems. When oftentimes there are problems with sizing, you have to be an 18 by 18 by 18 cube. And so this robot is 18 by 18 by 18 inches. But sometimes stray pieces of metal are outside that. And I don't like using a Dremel. It spins really fast. It's kind of scary. So Mr. Ball comes down and knows that.
In fact, that Queensbury event where we placed first and second was kind of a milestone for our team because Mr. Ball didn't have to come talk to us at all during that event. We ran that entire event by ourselves. It was very...
He got scared of us by that point. Fixed our reliability, which we really focused on.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming. That was just terrific.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is public comment number 1. Linda, do we have anybody signed up this evening? The first two, okay. Okay, just in accordance with our policy, I would remind you to keep your comments between 2 to 4 minutes. The first one is Brian Melanson and Patrick Casado.
I'm not sure how we can top that. No way, this is really boring.
As a little kid who makes a reference to Rocky is just... My name is Brian Melanson. I'm a phys ed teacher and a coach in a neighboring district. I'm also a sports coordinator for Section 2 in the state. And I stand here as a community member and a parent of 3 students, one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary school.
My name is Pat Casado. I work for the state. I'm ITS, so I'd like to see all that engineering and comp sci stuff. I have 4 freshmen currently at Gilderland.
And we stand in front of you hoping to have you put back into your proposal for the track and field that you don't just resurface the track, that you choose to go ahead and spend the extra money wisely, financially, to fix the foundation of the track, fix the foundation of the jump pits, and to also fix the drainage.
Right. Currently, I did some research. The surface of the track will normally last in this climate about 6 years. Our surface is currently 9 years old. The foundation will last between 15 and 20 years. It's currently at 17 years. So if you just do the surface, you're really just applying a Band-Aid, because in about 5 years, you're going to have to do the whole thing over again.
Which doesn't make any sense to us.
Right.
There's not just the track and field teams that use this. There is the community who also uses this as well.
I drove by the track today before I stopped here, and there's 4 seniors on the track. 2 are jogging and 2 are walking. So it's not just for the athletes, it's really for the whole community.
And as a runner myself, I know running is a lifelong sport. I know that when I stop running, I'll probably start walking, and that's something that you can use as well. And as a sports coordinator, I know that I have to pick, I'm the swimming coordinator, I have to pick what I think is the best facility to run our sectional meet, which is the biggest meet of the year for all of our athletes. For the last few years, including this year, the sectional meet is being held here at our facility, which is an amazing, it's amazing public.
But it's dangerous, because
Publicity.
if you look at the pictures, the rip outs, the tears, the sinkholes, we're really putting our athletes at risk.
But if you fix it, and we hold it here, it gives us a home field advantage, it gives us a number of great publicity. So we stand here hopefully in support to have you make a good decision and fix everything, and not just a Band-Aid.
Not just a Band-Aid. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And next we have Tara Malloy-Grocki.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tara Malloy-Grocki. I am a mother, a teacher, a taxpayer, and president of the Guilderland Teachers Association. My comments have to do kind of in two parts, and I do apologize. I meant to be here last week, but I was home with 102 fever, so this is why I'm here this week making these comments. As president of the Teachers Association, I talked to the teachers and the TAs and asked them, okay, so what are some of your concerns with the budget? And so our concern still is class size. We have 6 sections at the elementary level that are kind of up there and they're being reviewed. We have a couple third grades at 24 and 25. We have a kindergarten at 23. And I have told members how very cognizant the board is about class sizes and how receptive you are and sensitive you are, and the importance of keeping good class sizes for all students. So again, I'm just here to advocate for them because I just want to say that because it says 22, you have to look at the kids in the room. It's not just a number. So I'm just here to advocate. I know the Assembly and the Senate both gave their versions of the budget recently. I haven't read it yet because I just got the email before I came here. So I'm hoping that there'll be more money. Usually there is, but we got $35,000 worth of foundation aid, so I'm not really counting on too much with that. But anyhow, just if we can, if we can put some sections back in Guilderland, if necessary, if we have to add them in other buildings. And so I'm just putting it out there as if the board can be aware of that is a concern for our teachers. I've not heard from the middle school and the high school yet, but as soon as I do, I will probably email you and let you know their concerns. My next comments have to do with the capital project, which I did vote for in October, and I was very disappointed that it was defeated. But just listening to some of the comments last week, I just think we have to remember that we're doing this for children in our schools. We need to create the best learning environments for our kids. And one of the big problems we have in our schools right now is heat. Our schools are cold. In the morning you come in and it's hot or maybe comfortable, but by the afternoon, kids are in coats. My students want to wear gloves because their hands are cold, but you can't because it's writing, so you can't write with a mitten. And seriously, they're cold. We are cold. And it's not just my building, it's all the buildings. And I don't know, I know that there's something in there, I asked Cliff, I hope I'm doing this right. There's something with the software to make things better. We need this. We need heat in our buildings. And we also need, when it gets the other direction, is when classrooms that don't have air conditioning. It is beastly hot. My daughter almost passed out in the fall from the heat at the middle school. So, and I know she's not the only one because she went to the nurse's office. She saw 5 other people there. So it's just these are just not good climates for kids to learn in. So again, I know about taxes. Well, I grew up on Long Island, so I get it. But I just feel that we need to do what's best for our students, and heat is a huge thing, and just a comfortable air climate. And I did want to share publicly the letter that Brian Hughes wrote, a science teacher from the high school, about the necessities for renovations at the high school. I just think it was really well written, and it gave me a clear picture of exactly what was needed there. And after this great robotics demonstration, it's perfect. This is a perfect segue for this. So this is from Brian Hughes, and he also collaborated with other science teachers at the high school. He says, I'm writing to emphasize the immediate importance of needed renovations to some of the science spaces at Guilderland High School. The proposed renovations call for the conversion of the remaining lecture-only science rooms and the chemistry lab room into 9 combination lecture lab rooms. The conversion into combination rooms is increasingly important for multiple reasons. With the introduction of science electives, most teachers are teaching between 2 and 4 different classes, all with some laboratory component. For teachers without a combination classroom, they must make do working on desks in a room with no space for labs. Combination rooms allow teachers to smoothly transition into lab activities when the curriculum calls for them, not exclusively when you are scheduled to go to the lab room. In addition to the creation of new combination spaces, the proposed renovations would also remodel the physics lab space. The current state of that room is unsatisfactory for performing many of the labs. The lab tables themselves are warped and bent down. Many, if not most, physics labs require a level surface to perform. The electrical circuits in the lab cannot handle multiple lab devices plugged in at the same time. requiring frequent breaker resets and disrupting the student procedures. Some of the storage space in the room is no longer usable due to stuck or broken hardware. Windows cannot be blacked out for optics labs. Sinks and gas lines take up space but are not needed in physics. If you have not already, I invite you to tour these spaces. Last year, as part of the committee planning the proposed construction bond, I accompanied several parents and community members on a tour of these rooms. There was an overwhelming reaction of surprise and disbelief at the state of those rooms. Our goal of our department is to encourage students to pursue careers in STEM fields. Modern, functional spaces are one way to achieve that goal. I hope that you will consider the importance of this necessary work as you examine the items that will be included in the bond to be voted on in May. So I just thought that was really well written. It gave me a perfect visual of what I needed, and I just thought it was important for the community to also hear it as well. So thank you for your time. I know it's a tough conversation, and just thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we move on to approval of our consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the March 5th meeting, the CPSE and CSE recommendations, the personnel action items, a couple of textbooks, and the financials. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Sean, second Judy. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. So we'll move to information items. Damien?
Thanks very much. You may recall that last summer I shared with you that English teacher Amy Salamone from Gilderland High School and 3 of our 2018 GHS graduates, they are Jonah Goldstein, Arnav Kanan, and Tressa Palafil, submitted a proposal to present at the 2019 South by Southwest EDU conference, which was held in Austin, Texas. This is a national conference. It features many of the best thinkers, innovators, and leaders in education. I reported that in September, they were accepted to present a session entitled Disengaged Student Voices on Our Youth Crisis. The conference was held on March 4 through 7, and I've included for your information the program description and a few photos shared by Mrs. Salamone. And of course, we're very proud of these esteemed graduates, and of course, their dedicated teacher, Mrs. Salamone, for their achievements and success as South by Southwest. And my second item, we have a number of students who, again, are excelling in music. So the Suburban Council Scholastic Council Music Festival will be held at Ballston Spa High School on Saturday, March 30th. Over 300 talented music students were selected by audition from the 15 Suburban Council schools. The groups performing this year include a middle school band, chorus, and orchestra, as well as a high school jazz band. The Gilderland Music Department is pleased to announce that 32 students were selected to participate, performing in the string orchestra under the direction of Mr. Evan McGregor of Mahopac High School will be Dante London on violin, Ian Gu and Hazel Regan on cello, and Olivia Covington on bass. The concert band includes Farnsworth Middle School students Alexis Priest on flute, Lena Cohen-Greenberg and Olivia Petty on oboe, Anna DeBoom and Carson Rittner and Jade Sum on clarinet, Janine Chow on bassoon, Bodan Kinal on alto sax, Hannah Bowman, Andrew Camparetta, Landon Kinnell, Jacob Palmer, and Nathan Palmer on trumpet, Clayton Friedman, Nicholas Lynch, and Mason Smolin on trombone, Justin Gaglio and Say Asrith Sitapali on baritone, and they will perform under the direction of Dr. John Hart of the Hart School of Music. For our vocalists selected to sing with the concert choir, they include Leah Danahy, Emma Harbach, Ashley Hogan, Jamie Lau, Rayleigh Smith, Gregory Treschel, Michael Wong, and Liam Yurdan. These students will perform under the direction of Dr. Stephen A. Papero of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Aidan Doyle and Vivian Redmond will be on trombone, and they were selected by audition to perform in the high school jazz ensemble led by jazz educator Chris Bruya of the Jazz Studies at Central Washington University. Congratulations to all of these fine musicians and their teachers, and again, the concert will be held on Saturday, March 30th at Ballston Spa High School beginning at 2 p.m., and it is free and open to the public.
Thank you, Damien. Are there any questions or comments for Damien? Okay, so we move to superintendent information. Marie?
Thanks so much. My first item is announcement of our annual job fair, which will be held on April 11th, 2019. We will be hosting districts from all around the capital region It will be held from 1 to 6 in our high school auditorium, and administrators will be on hand to meet with prospective employees about substitute openings and anticipated vacancies in all titles in schools. We'll also have representatives from BOCES, and the regional certification officers from the region will be here. And we have more than 40 at this point. Is that correct, Dr. Severance?
Yes.
The number keeps growing of school districts and other organizations who have signed up to participate. It is the event to come to if you are looking for a position in this region in education. And I just have to commend Lynn and her team for once again pulling this together. It's a huge service, not just to us, but to the whole region.
It is a wonderful way to market Guilderland as well, and I invite all of the board members to come that day and just take a look at. It's really pretty impressive to have the gymnasium filled with candidates from all over the state. They come as far from the west as Buffalo and from the south as Long Island to come to this.
So Lynn, I'm going to put you on the spot. Will the little bus be there this year?
Oh, I have to ask Danielle if she can get the little bus out. It's yeah. Yeah. It's my special ask every year.
Yes. So thanks, Lynn. My next item is a reminder about our Superintendent's Conference Day, which is this Friday, March 22nd. And I shared the list of activities earlier on Friday, and I left off the high school. The high school, I'll start with them, is continuing work they began, actually that's been going on for some time around curriculum and assessment development. So they'll be working mainly in departments for the day, and I know they very much appreciate some uninterrupted time to do that important work. In our other levels, our entire Farnsworth staff will be working with Dr. Stacy Williams, focusing in on cultural sensitivity and awareness. As you know, we've talked about our changing demographics and our need for all of us to become more culturally sensitive and aware. So that workshop will be going on in the morning, and I'll just point out that Stacy Williams will be working with the administrative team this summer at our summer retreat. We also have a variety of mandated trainings going on for our transportation department and for some of our monitors. We have Center for Autism coming to work with their K-12 teaching assistants, and we have really a tremendously well-known presenter, Jim Wright, who's working with our entire elementary team, including special education, on Tier 1 intervention strategies. Just so you know, we've been talking about the book that the administrative team has been reading, Better Conversations by Jim Wright. It's the same Jim Wright. So we're delighted to have him with us. And then our ENL staff and our World Language and Cultures group are also working with some consultants, and our clerical group will be learning more about our subsystem. So we have something for everyone on Friday, and we're excited for the day. It will be very busy. And then my last information item is just a brief summary about our joint trustee meeting with the Guilderland Public Library. We met with the trustees on Thursday, March 14th at 6 p.m. And those members who attended on behalf of the board were Teresa Gito, Judy Slack, and Barbara Frederigo. And Neil Sanders and I were also there. The library had a huge group this time. It was very well attended. Brian Best, Chris Aldridge, Barbara Frederigo, Noreen Rivas, Michael Marcantonio, Caitlin Downey, Herb Hennings, and Barry Nelson, plus the director, the assistant director, and several other staff members. We spent the bulk of our time talking about our mutual capital construction projects, both of which are slated to go on the ballot on May 21st. But we also talked a little bit about our MOU and needing to update that, or considering updating that. And that was the bulk of our conversation, but it was a well-attended meeting and I think a good conversation. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Marie? Okay, so we move to board president information items. There's 3 this evening. The first is that the annual meeting of the Capital Region BOCES is scheduled for Tuesday, April 2nd. Reservations to attend to this meeting are due by noon on Wednesday, March 20th. If board members are interested in attending, please let board clerk Linda Livingston know.
And for your information, the date of Wednesday, April 17th, at our special board meeting that takes place at 8 a.m., is the date selected to vote on the 2019-20 Board of Cooperative Educational Services budget and election. The next one relates to our upcoming Board of Education election. Petitions are available through the district clerk for any district resident who might be considering running for the Board of Education. There are three three-year terms on the board that expire June 30th, 2019. In order to be eligible to run for the Board of Education, nominating petitions with 39 or more signatures from qualified voters in the district must be submitted to the district clerk on or before Monday, April 22nd by 5 p.m. Anyone who has questions about the duties and responsibilities of a board member may contact the superintendent, board president, or any current member of the Board of Education. A candidate must be able to read and write, be at least 18 years of age, a qualified voter, and a district resident for at least 1 year prior to the date of the vote on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. Further qualifications and information is in the packet available through the district clerk. And the final item is that the 2019-20 Board of Cooperative Educational Services budget and election will take place on Wednesday, April 17th, 2019. There are 4 seats up for election. This is the date of our special board meeting, and that takes place at 8 a.m. Are there any questions or comments on any of these? Okay, so we move to action items, school business management. Neil?
Thank you. First item this evening is the approval of a service agreement with Bell's Auto Driving School to provide behind-the-wheel driver education services for the 2019-20 school year at a cost of $360 per student.
May I have a motion to approve the contract? Tim, second. Judy, are there any questions or comments on this one?
This is the same group who has been doing it?
Yep, they've been with us for 17 years.
That's what I thought, okay.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0.
Next item is a donation, and we're very appreciative of the Princetown Evangelical Presbyterian Church for various high school classroom supplies that they donated to us.
May I have a motion to accept the donation? Barbara, second. Teresa. Any questions or comments other than thank you for the very generous donation? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. So now we move to board president action items, and the first one is our capital construction project. This will require a roll call vote, so I'll take a motion in a second and then we can discuss it. May I have a motion to approve the capital construction project? Judy, second. Ben. Okay, so now we can have a discussion on what is before you, and what's before you is what has been presented over the weeks with no modifications. So we can talk about any potential modifications or moving forward with it as it was presented. Would anybody like to begin the conversation? Barbara.
I'd like to make an amendment to include the track resurfacing as well as the subsurface added to the bond total.
I'll second that if necessary. Okay. So do we want to discuss it? We have a motion on the floor in a second.
I don't have it in front of me. Was it?
And we can have Cliff come up and explain what the change would be from what is currently in the project to the larger.
But this was like a second priority? I mean, it was originally in.
Yep, and then it went to a priority 2.
Priority 2, okay. That's what I was wondering.
Cliff, do you want to just come up and elaborate on exactly what it is again?
Bring a chair.
Yeah, I mean, originally we had doing the entire work on the track as a priority 1. Like I said, as part of that charge was, I went back and split out just resurfacing, which actually, as the gentleman explained, it does buy us a little time, but is really not. This was also one of the things I asked the board to go back and look at. So that cost would be, round numbers, $209,708.
And what's just the resurfacing again?
Resurfacing was $249,203, $303.
And how much is you said 209,000, I thought.
$209,708 added to the $249,303.
Oh, I see, okay.
So an additional 209.
Correct. To do the complete work. Neil's got the calculator. He can add that.
calculated.
It seems to me that's a safety issue as much as a savings issue.
We do repairs to the track every year.
Yeah.
Even, I haven't evaluated it this year, and I was talking with one of the parents. Our coaches will go out and set cones in areas, and we'll bring in, there's really only, I'll be honest, there's not a ton of track repair people in the area. There's really only one. I won't name the names because typically I don't do that, but there's really one game in town, and we work with them on our track and our tennis courts. So if there's something that would need to be repaired, prior to track season, we would do that repair. They're Band-Aids. It's winter. I mean, it's the same. The track takes the same beating as our tennis courts, as our parking lots. If water gets under the track, it freezes, it expands.
Barbara?
To me, it's, as I said the last meeting, it seems to be a waste just to resurface it, and then a few years down the road, you have to do it all over again. From what I understand, from the standpoint of safety, first of all, they have to sort of squeegee the track just to get the water off a lot of the places. And you have all these pits and crevices and cracks all along the side rail there. So I certainly is more than willing to consider putting it in. I really think it's a safety issue as well as a common sense savings issue in the long run.
Others? Tim?
I guess I would just make a comment that if we're going to put that in, and I think Mr. McGuire has talked about this, we should look at taking something out then to alleviate it. So if you just look quick at the security film plus the bathroom lock sets, that would come in around 276, a little under 276,000. That would be an offset there. Because I still believe we should keep the total at least where it is, and not keep punching it up a little bit and a little bit. So I would just suggest maybe thinking about that.
Barbara?
The other thing that we could do is just add a little more from our fund balance to cover it for the bond issue. That's another way of doing it. If your estimation is correct, and we're going to be at that $4 million mark, even though it's nice to have that cushion, we could do that to address Tim's concern.
Judy?
My concern, Tim, with the windows and the bathroom locks is that the area of greatest concern for parents was safety. And if we step back on that, I just feel a concern. I think I like Barbara's idea of, I don't think we should be raising and raising. I agree with you there. But I think maybe if we could take a little bit, and these I don't think will be huge, and I think that might be a way to keep the safety in, and safety on the track really too. So.
Sean?
So on two things, I agree with having two little, ones in the school, and that's always been my first priority, so I'm really having a hard time with the safety piece. The one thing I'd like to see moving forward is maybe one of us sitting on the safety committee, because for all the committees that we sit on, none of us are part of the safety committee to evaluate that. I certainly have a great deal of trust in all of you to bring back and say, yeah, there's a real threat out there that we need to address. Not that I don't trust anybody else, but we're charged with a different level of responsibility. To that extent, I would be in favor of using our fund balance to not increase the amount of borrowing, but instead pay for these things in cash.
Ben?
I just wanted, off of that idea, to say that capital isn't always physical, right? It's just saved value, and sometimes that's the form of durable goods like school buildings, but sometimes that's in having a large sum of money on hand to adapt to unforeseen and critically important circumstances. And furthermore, there's social capital, which we might get into later, where the community has to fund this building project, and then the next building project, and then this year's budget, and next year's budget, and to really go to them and say, we're not squandering your money, keeps the goodwill with the community. So I just want to point out that, capital isn't always just physical, and that there is trade-offs involved. It's not just using fund balance. It's like, okay, well, now we have less fund balance, and that's not a good place to be in either. In fact, we should be upping our fund balance according to auditors who look at our stuff. So.
Other comments? I think I would be in favor of what Tim had suggested in not increasing the total cost of the project that we put before the voters, but taking that money from the fund balance to do it if that's our priority. Seema?
I'm in agreement. I'm not really confident about the bond project and how, if it's going to pass, so I don't think upping that number is a good idea, but I can see how the track, but I also see the playground, both of them are kind of important to the community. So I don't know if that's going to come up in discussion, because I know we got a bunch of emails about playgrounds. So if we include track and take that out of fund balance, does that mean we're not going to talk about playgrounds too? I'm just wondering where everybody is with that.
Anybody's thoughts on the playgrounds?
Well, I know at PTA at two different groups of PTA meetings, parents expressed concerns about playgrounds, and we're glad to hear at that point that we had put them in after the first round of the first budget, and then the question was, are we going to be able to keep the playgrounds in? So I mean, at least from the small sample that provides, it still is an area that parents would like, and I mean, I'd like to see it for the kids, but all of this is for kids, so it's hard to say.
Anyone else on that? I'm not sure, so are there any suggestions on where the funding would come from for playgrounds if that's something we were to do?
We have cash in terms of fund balance. I think that if we're going to make a case to voters that we need more money, we have to use the resources they've already trusted us with, that they've already paid us for.
Yeah, again, I just want to say fund balance isn't for this. It's for, there's a recession and taxes go down, and we're talking about cutting classes and teachers and weathering storms, not we can't get our act together and keep roofs on our buildings and playgrounds safe. It's emergency funds. It's, we have $6 million. We add the underlayment for the track. We start adding the 3 playgrounds that are there. I'm sure we're going to talk about adding a few more things. Next thing you know, we're taking $1 million, $2 million out of our fund balance. That's a third of our fund balance. So I want to slow down on this road and kind of imagine that the fund balance also belongs to the community, right? So we're either just taking the taxes or we're taking it from what they've entrusted us with for emergencies.
Barbara?
I guess I just want to say we're not talking millions of dollars here. I think it was $209,000 for the, correct me on that, to do the
underlayment to the track.
subsurface.
Yep.
Was $209,000.
Yes.
And the recommendation for the playground equipment, I think, was 100 or 150.
200,000.
200. It's 100 for Pine Bush, and then 50 for Linwood and 50 for Altamont.
Now, there's another way that we could do the playgrounds and make it, and again, maybe this is wishful thinking, make it part of our budget for the following year. Because both the Senate and the Assembly have put in bills that are supposedly going to give us more money than the $35,000 foundation aid, and so that if we get excess there, we would then build up the fund balance that we're all concerned about. So that's a possibility.
And also, when Cliff came and presented, I think he said this here, but also at the Business Practices Committee, that lump sum for the playgrounds is a recommendation, but you could do less. You could do like $25,000 for each. It doesn't have to be at the top of that.
No, I'm sort of reminded of what we began doing a few years back with our musical equipment, that we put in anywhere from, 10 to 20,000 a year as a replacement line in our budget. And, we could just start small, as you said, for each school, X number of dollars, and put it in the budget for this upcoming year. John has a question.
Sean?
On the question of when we use the money or not, just to get to, I understand what Ben's saying, but whether we pay for it now or pay for it later, it's still cash coming out of the pocket of the taxpayers. It's still cash coming out. Either we're going to borrow it and we're going to pay interest on it, or we're going to use what we already have and we're going to save that cost. And how much of those the additional items that we're adding in, how much state aid kicks in?
It's about 65%.
Okay, so we're not even talking about, we're talking about spending 40% of these numbers, right? So these pieces that we're adding in are not net of aid.
Correct.
So we're not adding up huge numbers here. We got a message from the taxpayers that they did not want the bond as it was presented in October. If we add these pieces in, I don't agree with going back and going to more, because we've already had the recommendation from the facilities committee and saying what was essential, what were priority one items. However, if the community wants these other pieces in there, we have resources on hand to use. And whether I sort of disagree with the fact that we should save this money down the road, because you and I have paid those funds in this year, last year, the previous year. But if we just sit on them and they don't benefit us until 10 years down the road, then the taxpayers who made that investment in these schools aren't going to realize the benefit of those taxes paid.
Seema?
I was just wondering if we can have an update about the heating and cooling. I feel like these are basic things that our building should have. And I've heard of issues that have come up in the past, like here and there, but I didn't realize how big of a problem it is. That's what at least I'm hearing more recently from parents and from other people in the building. So I didn't know if we could, what was in the priority one, like what's still in there, what's in priority two. I don't have the PowerPoint in front of me. I can look for it.
Cliff has it committed to memory.
I don't necessarily agree with all the comments on heating and cooling. I mean, we've done a lot of things here in the past few years, and in my tenure here, we used to run at 67 degrees. We run at 70 degrees now, which I don't think. Tara is correct. When you come in the buildings, it's no different when you get up in the morning, your furnace kicks on. I set mine to get 15 minutes before I get out of bed, so everything's nice and toasty when I walk out, and your house is heating up. Then when your house gets the temperature and your furnace kicks off, how do you feel? Do you feel a little chillier than it was when the nice warm air was blowing in? I mean, I do. I know if I'm sitting on my desk and the furnace is blowing out hot air, I think that's really nice. Then it turns off and you're like, wish the heat would turn back on. Well, it's the same thing. We go through a heat curve in the morning. So our systems turn on, we're driving all our buildings up to set point. And when they get to set point, it levels out. So now the heat's turning down to maintain that temperature. Biggest difference in school buildings versus your house is we bring in fresh air. You don't, unless you open your doors or windows. So as we're bringing in that fresh air, we're heating that air, and in the wintertime, relative humidity is our biggest enemy. Because when you get in January and February and the relative humidity is way down low, like in the 20% range, that can have like a 6-degree feeling to your skin in temperature. So like a 70 or a 72 will really feel like it's in the 60s because the air is so dry. We can't, there's no way for us to compensate for that. To the overall question, all the HVAC work that was originally in priority one, minus we took out some of the units at Linwood, is still there. So high school, middle school is the largest chunk of new equipment. Altamont, Gilliland Elementary, Westmere is a brand new control system, and it actually will give teachers, we'll give them a little control, make them feel better, a lot, a little. Pine Bush has a new equipment portion in there as well. So that entire, I didn't really touch any of that, Seema, because it is. I mean,
So the bulk of it's
cold.
still in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I can remember.
Barbara?
The only advantage of, if we want the playground equipment, which from the letters from parents and from what we've been told, is in really poor shape. I mean, the one in Altamont apparently is wooden, has a lot of bees in it. Kids can't use it half the time.
Barbara, I think Cliff responded to that, so that's one
he
side
did?
of what we heard, but Cliff can come up and,
okay.
in case you haven't.
That's why I said it.
All three playgrounds are wooden, Barbara, actually, that we're talking about. They're
All three are?
Yes.
Oh,
They're
okay.
all older wooden playgrounds, and actually, I responded back to the email from one parent. I'm pretty sure Altamont's actually the oldest of the three, but believe it or not, that's actually in better shape than the other two. Altamont's massive. We do fight bees there every year. I mean, if a nest is reported, there is a process we go through to take care of the nest. They can build them overnight, so I mean, I can't say that I can attack every bee. We respond to probably over 100 different bees nests in the school district on any given year. So all three are wooden. All three do need to be replaced. Condition-wise, I put Pine Bush and Linwood is actually in worse condition than Altamont. And some of the things we talked about was schools, one playground versus two playgrounds, where Pine Bush only has one, where there would be options for maybe reduced funding at Altamont and Linwood to add on to their newer sections potentially. And I could go there and get creamed by the PTA that, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to keep a, separate playground over here. Pine Bush is probably my number one concern, but I don't want to single it out. We originally started with 150 at each building, and I know that sounds like a lot of money. We just started a fundraiser for one inclusive piece at Westmere. It'll be our first inclusive piece at that playground, and the guy gets the catalog out, and you're looking, and I saw this really cool piece. It was like a merry-go-round, but it stayed flush with the ground, so you could drive a wheelchair on it. $28,000. It's like buying either two good used cars or one new car and a semi-good used car. It's a lot of the conversations we talked about was going inclusive, and if we truly want to do that and have adaptive pieces, it's expensive to do this work. This was kind of different for this district. We've always relied, like on the PTAs or fundraising. I mean, we do budget for repairs and replacement parts, but at least since I've been here, we never went and budgeted for an entire playground. We always kind of pushed that back on the community, and then we help. I took a little different approach here just because of the costs. Not thinking it was necessarily fair to try to push that out to the community, just those three catchments alone, if we spread it across. And then, like I said, that money still doesn't complete a playground. We'd still be working with our PTAs in each of those catchment schools, to do fundraising. But if you're talking raising $150,000, $200,000, that's a lot of money. But it's really up to the community. It's up to the board. I love the playground.
But I was going to say, if the board wants to add the playground equipment, I think the best place to add it would be to the capital project, because you get reimbursement about 60%, as Sean pointed out, for that, versus if we were to put it in our budget for this upcoming year, it's just in the budget.
That's right.
So I guess my preference would be, if everybody agrees to the playground stuff, to put it in the capital project, use those funds that we have, keep the project price the same, and put it up to the voters. I think Tim said today, it's up to the voters now. So we've done our homework, we've done our due diligence, and hopefully the public will respond in a positive way.
Barb, so you mean the amount that's proposed for the playgrounds in the bond, is that what you're saying, the 150?
Well,
or less?
Yeah, or less, but at least some seed money for the PTAs. I mean, I lived through the era when they did the playground for the Gilliland Elementary School, and that was years in the making. I mean, we had grants from, legislative grants and all kinds of fundraisers, and it took years and years. And by that time, some of the kids were already out of the school by the time, it was finished. So at least having some seed money or money, to buy one piece of equipment. And as he said, one piece is $28,000 in many instances. And that's just one little piece. That's not like a whole, what do you call them? Like the old-fashioned monkey bars that are no longer, I guess, called monkey bars, but whatever they're called. And, but as I said, I think the kids deserve it. You want them to be healthy, you want them to be able to do things. So I guess my recommendation would be to put it in the capital project.
But then use the fund balance for the track?
Well, for both.
Oh, so for both?
For both, right. And then, hopefully we'll get more money from the state for our budget, which can then go over to the fund balance or reducing taxes further.
My back of the napkin number here is that if it were put into the building project, but we use our fund balance with the 60% reimbursement, we're talking about $263,883.
For just the playgrounds?
To do all three playgrounds and to do the track foundation. Now, you would have my support to do that if we were gonna use fund balance.
I mean, if Neil can verify that, I would be in support of that too. I don't know if that's what the numbers add up to be.
I have 421,000 roughly. There's some that we have to add on for escalation, but that's what the playgrounds and the other proposal for the track as well. So that would be the addition over what we started tonight with.
So the track foundation is 209.
Plus there's about 5,000 and change of escalation because we're pushing the project out another year. So that has always been part of the calculation when we had to step back and start over again. So on the original summary in the presentation that you've seen before, we have to add in this piece of escalation. It's about 2.8%.
And then the playgrounds, all three altogether would be 450,000. Is that not at 60%?
That's 200,000 for the playgrounds as recommended.
150. I'm looking at the PowerPoint as 150 per.
That was the original. Yeah.
The original number was 150 per playground on the PowerPoint.
Yep.
And I know there was discussions of if we were to put seed money in, and I do believe even it was either Marie that we said if we're going to do that, I was asked pick some numbers, and I put 100 at Pine Bush. Because like I said, I look at that as a single playground that if we lose that, then we have nothing. To where the other buildings still have two, and then we would go 50 at Altamont and 50 at Linwood. And work with the PTAs to go. Or we could go back to the original 150, but that's where there's two sets of numbers being kicked around.
Cliff, can I just ask you, because my kids were at Linwood when we did the whole fundraising, the PTA did fundraising, and Amy Stewart led the way and did an amazing job and raised all this money. Can you explain why we're putting more money into the playground there? Because I know that we had, when my kids were there, that we had two playgrounds at Linwood. We had the new one that we fundraised for, and then we still had the old one. So is the old one the one that you're trying to revamp or redo?
The old one would be, we had this discussion a little bit, Teresa, of didn't necessarily feel it was my place as facility director to tell the district if they have one or two playgrounds.
Right.
The building still uses the older playground. It's a little more age appropriate for the younger kids versus the equipment that's on the new playground.
The new side.
I will say, and I have not talked to the Linwood community. We have an interim principal there as well. I would love to get that playground out of the woods. And it makes where the new playground is very easy to add age-appropriate equipment on the other side of the building. So my personal thought would be we would just add age-appropriate equipment to the existing new playground and move the swing set over to that side of the building and make the thing in the woods disappear.
So you would knock that down and just get new equipment into the... That's your preference.
That's my thought. Doesn't mean I'm going to win that thought, but that's, and I could even make a similar argument at Altamont that the new stuff's over on the one side of the building, never really like the piece up on the hill, but as you come down on the flats, is we could add where the space net is, same thing, expand that area in the flat area and have age-appropriate equipment as well added on that side. Once again, I have not spoken to the...
I agree with what you're saying, and I do agree that playgrounds are very important. I think my hesitation towards it is just because I was at Linwood when we did all that fundraising, and it was such a huge effort, and we got a lot of money towards the playground, and
Amy
now
pulled
we're going to
off a
put it in the
fundraising effort.
budget.
I've never seen anything like it in my career. That's all. I mean,
Unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
And I don't know if that's feasible to pull off 3 more times at other buildings, and and I'm not singling out Altamont, but Altamont's a much smaller catchment in comparison to a Pine Bush as well, so they don't necessarily have the same resources to be able to do that. So that's where these conversations came from. That's where, when we talked about trying to be making our playgrounds more inclusive, came from.
Sorry. Trying to get Gloria back on here.
I completely.
So that's where the whole thing came from. Once again, I think would be great to move Linwood's over, but I truly don't think that's in my wheelhouse as a facilities director to tell district, community, or board to say you can't have 2 playgrounds. That's really up to the community. It's coming out of the woods either way. That I can say, because we don't have a good line of sight. It's a hangout spot, I would say, evening hours as well. So either way, I would make the recommendation that it comes out more into the field if we were to keep pieces over on that side so we can see them.
I know we had that discussion before. I also wanted to make it known, but at the same time, I really think the track needs to be taken care of, and I do agree that there's playgrounds that need to be addressed.
There are many things.
There's many things that need to be
Honestly,
addressed.
Anytime
We can
look
go
at
on
this
and
stuff,
on.
we try to balance it out across the needs of the district. I don't want to spend a night here, but I can point at all kinds of, things we could invest in.
That's why when we first had the capital project presentation, I totally agreed. I felt everything that you presented were things that we needed. Now that we're cutting back, it's hard to say, let's put this in and not put that back in, and let's take this out and put this back in. It's a hard decision to make, and I don't know if playgrounds is where I want those monies to go. I struggle with that, and I think it's because of Linwood. I really do. I feel that we put so much effort into getting money ourselves as parents. The PTA got together, and I agree, there's smaller schools like Altamont that probably can't raise 100,000 plus. I agree. I struggle with what we're putting in and what we're taking out, and these are just the decisions that the board has to make, and they're tough ones. And you're going to piss somebody off. You always will.
Pretty much.
Since Cliff is out there, I thought so
Cliff's
the
just
high
gonna stay
school, the high school labs, is everything that needs to be taken care of in the high school labs? Because I know we've gotten a bunch of letters about it. Are they
No
in?
adjustments were made to the high school labs.
Okay, so everything is still there.
No, I felt, just once again, trying to balance out priorities, that they were the higher priority.
So then I would be, yes, I would be in favor of, redoing the track and maybe even a little bit to the PTAs for the playgrounds.
The seed money.
Yeah, some seed money, because they're pretty expensive. But I'm just wondering, will that make a difference? Will they be, will they say, oh, that's might as well give, us nothing, or, yes, they can
I think
fundraise.
anything makes a difference depending on timing, how we did it. We could take, if we're on a timeline with the capital project, we can go, I would work with the PTAs anyway on the design. We would bring in a playground person on state contract or whatever, and, we would lay out what we would want the vision to be, so we could just straight up buy pieces through the capital project and then work on how we, put those in. Very similar to Westmere, we did, I've pieced Westmere's together, and the same thing, we're working on our first inclusive piece on the Westmere Playground.
Thanks.
Barbara?
Cliff, we're not replacing the playground that the PTA
No.
got in
Linwood?
Linwood.
No.
Where it's the old one.
It's the old one in the woods. It's a wooden
Yeah, exactly.
structure. There's
So it's not like
pieces.
No, I
that
agree.
would
No, I
be
understood that.
in vain.
No, I understood that.
It sounds silly, and we've said this before. It's like, there's pieces on both of those we've had to remove because of they were either broken or whatever. And you would think you would be able to go out and just buy a slide that fits. Well, it doesn't. We can't find one for Pine Bush. I think I said that before. I would have to try to redo the whole base so I could get a slide that meets the run or the rise, or then I'm rebuilding the tie. It's not worth the effort to try and do that.
So I just want to make an observation that I'm really struggling with this for the reasons that Ben and Tim have raised, in that we presented the project once to the voters. They clearly told us no. They gave us the feedback. And then we had the construction manager, the architects, people from the district come back and put this list together of priority 1, 2, 3. So now that is public. People know what that is. I'm fearful that if we put these additional items in, the people who came out to vote no the first time are then going to come back and say, hey, look, you lowered it, but at the last minute the board now put these additional items back in, which the construction managers, the architect, and the district didn't consider enough of a priority 1 to be put as a priority 1 the second time around. So that's my fear, is that there's a lot on the ballot in May, and to increase this is a risk. So do you want to take this risk and take the chance that you're putting these things back in and you might be fueling the fire of the naysayers, that more people will come out and vote no? I just wanted to put that out there, that it's a real risk that's being taken, Barbara.
We're not increasing the 30.6 million that we said we had reduced it to. We're using some of the fund balance that hopefully will be replenished, next year to do it. We're not, in a sense, boosting the project. And we heard right from the beginning that particularly the track was a disaster in the making, and that it really should be replaced, but because he was taxed with the thing of cutting, he very reluctantly, even in his presentation, said that we can patch it, but it's only going to be temporary, and you're basically throwing away $200 or something $1,000 just to resurface it when you could have a new track. So
I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying. I completely agree with you. I'm just wondering that what the perception is going to be to the voters, and I want to make sure that everybody at this table is thinking about that and understanding it when you're having these discussions. I completely agree with you 100%. I would love to put it in. If we can pay with it, fund balance, we can do it that way. But I just wanted to put that idea out there so that everybody's thinking about it. Sean?
I just want to say I did have a chance. I want to thank Mr. Piscatelli and Ms. Haas at the high school, because I took an opportunity to come and meet with one of the teachers that sent us a letter just to see the labs that she was talking about, and they do need a great deal of work. I think that to reiterate what Cliff had said is that nothing, that there are a lot of essential items, and some of those things are being moved out. I'm glad to see the high school labs will be dealt with, because I made the observation, a little bit in jest, but not entirely serious, not too far in jest, that the labs that we have in the high school do not look like the labs of the 20th century. They look like the labs of the 19th century sometimes. That we really have a long ways to go to updating those. But and then back to the other point here, and I said it, and I'll just say it again, that I'm okay with the track and the playgrounds as long as it's good, as long as we have the cash to pay for it. But I'm not in favor of amending this resolution to increase the amount that we're going to ask the voters for.
Barbara?
Okay, the resolution that I had on the floor was to do the track, and it was seconded. Should I amend that to include the playground equipment?
I'm not sure
with the
practically
proviso?
how we do this, considering it comes from the fund balance, and it wouldn't be part of the total that would go before the voters.
The total, I think, would still be the same.
The total, basically the bond resolution is going to talk about the total borrowing amount. So what we would have is the total amount of the project, and then we talk about use of the capital reserve, the $3,150,000 coming out, and then some amount of money from available funds.
So it would be changing that capital reserve amount in here, increasing it to accommodate the items that,
Now, we couldn't do it with the capital reserve because we would have, we're using
so it
all of
would
the
be
money that's
additional
currently in.
language?
Sorry,
It would be adding additional language that those items would be coming from fund balance?
yes. Because we have, the board would have to act to move money into the capital reserve.
Neil, I don't have the budget with me. How much is in our fund balance currently?
Lots of layers to fund balance.
I
The
know.
pieces that we're talking about here tonight would be the capital reserve, which we're going to take all of that money right now, but that's dedicated to capital improvements. We have other reserve funds that we couldn't use money for because they're restricted for other purposes, retirement contributions, workers' comp, and those sorts of things. So now we're back to what we call fund balance, which is the up to 4% of the following year's budget that we can set aside for contingency purposes.
Right.
That's the pot of money we would be drawing for under the concept that's been discussed here. And just remember, we're also taking each year $849,500 as part of our budget out of fund balance to help lower the taxes, so that's part of the equation too.
Okay.
I guess that's a good question for Neil, just how do you feel about the way that this discussion is going in terms of that additional money coming from the fund balance?
I'm
Your
not
thoughts
a
on
big fan of that. I just think we've demonstrated over time, second lowest in the suburban council. We have got a lot of uncertainty at the state level in terms of the state's future and the money that we will be able to get from the state, federal government as well. A lot of changes that are occurring there. So I think, again, we have a very low fund balance. We're going to go into a borrowing situation right now. With a lowered bond rate, we haven't climbed out of that hole yet. We're on the precipice of being able to do that with some more fund balance, but we're not there yet. Our bond rating was lowered and we haven't gotten back over the top again. We're not that far removed from being on the susceptible to fiscal stress list because we got so low before when we used all of that fund balance. So now we're in the rebuilding phase and we're kind of getting back up to where we should. And again, so taking more out of fund balance just sets that back again and leaves us in a little bit more perilous situation if we had some economic recession and loss of state aid and those sorts of things, and being able to move forward with our programs and staffing as we currently have them. There's risk on that side, I guess I would say.
Barbara?
You want to just do the track resolution first, and then somebody put the other thing on the floor? And do people want to reduce the amount, or? Right now, Cliff is asking for 200,000, maybe 50, 20, 25, 25, or nothing at all, whatever.
Oh, for the playground?
I think, from what I've heard, everybody that I think has spoken is okay with the track and taking it out of the fund balance. You want to do that one first separately, or? Okay.
But if we simply cede the money to the track, or I'm sorry, to the playgrounds, is that going to trigger state aid?
It will be as part of the overall project, because the equipment, if we're talking about buying equipment, we would be purchasing that as part of the overall project, which would make it eligible for it.
So over the course of the project, if the PTAs were going to do something to try to raise monies, they would have a deadline by which to do that, because we would need to complete the improvements in order to realize the state aid.
Right, or at least buy the equipment to have it available.
Or at least, yeah.
That's why I said we focus, right? We focus our fund balance equipment because that would not be tied to the construction timeline necessarily.
Okay.
It's true.
Okay, so the first motion is to include the track, taking that money from the science lab.
Taking that money
I
from
mean,
fund
I'm sorry, taking it from the fund balance.
Where did that
Too many things on the table.
Right.
Okay, so I guess we could do it by a show of hands. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Can you just repeat what you just said?
This is just to put the track back into as a priority one and taking that money from the fund balance.
I'll be in favor of that.
And that has 4, 5. Judy's your hand up? 6, 7.
Go with,
Okay, so that, Yep, 7. Judy's down and Ben is down. All those opposed?
I'm not really opposed, but.
Passes 7-2. Okay, is there another motion? For the playgrounds, is there another motion or no? Okay, so we'll move forward then if there's not for the playground.
Well, I'll make a motion to include the playgrounds at not to exceed $100,000.
Is there a second?
You also want to kind of clarify the use of fund balance.
How much did you put up?
I said 100.
100? I'll second.
Okay, by a show of hands, all those in favor?
Hold on, so 100 total for each? And I'm not sure what we're voting on.
I said 100 total. Maybe do we need to discuss that before we call a vote on it? Is that appropriate here?
Yeah, of course, we can discuss
I hate
it.
to kick it around one more time, but.
No, we can discuss it. Ben?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, again, fund balance, you don't just throw it at things, you know? Like it's one thing to, like, say, okay, Pine Bush's playground, you know, the structure collapsed, let's actually just rebuild the playground. But to be like, well, you know, since we're digging into fund balance, let's take 100,000 and offer to the PTAs to incentivize them to start I said this way back in July. Money on hand is more valuable when money is scarce. Right now, the economy is actually kind of good. Yes, our project got voted down. Yes, there's a ton of things on the ballot, but it's still 100% taking away money from our community to take it from the fund balance, because one day they're going to need it, and one day we're going to want a better interest rate, and one day we're going to want to keep all of our teachers because you know, there's a recession that it's coming again, right? And so just this kind of, you know, just this ad hoc use of fund balance use, you know, why aren't we, you know, expanding enrichment next year with fund balance? Let's just add all of the things that we want. We just happen to have a list in front of us that we're picking and choosing from, but there's 50 pages of more lists that we could use fund balance for. But instead, we should be saving fund balance to keep what we have when we need to do that. It's just my feeling here. You know, I would almost be more in favor of, like, saying, all right, let's rebuild the playgrounds, rather than saying, let's just take some money, since we have this big pot of it. That's not what it is.
Sean?
I mean, I would rather just address the playgrounds entirely. I mean, I couldn't disagree with you more about the use of the money. I realize we need to have some on hand in case of a rainy day, and we have some needs here that can't be addressed through the way we attempted to address them in October. I don't necessarily think it's the most prudent thing to do is to ignore the playgrounds of our elementary schools. I heard a presentation this week from 3 area superintendents. They talked about school security, and they said that probably the most important thing about school security is about building community, not fortresses. And I think that taking care of the track, taking care of the playgrounds helps us build that sense of community. So I think it's a wise investment. Like I said, I want to do it with cash. I don't want to do it with added borrowing, but we're talking, I would just, Ben, I would disagree with you. You know, thank you for your comments.
Tim?
Yeah, this is brutal. This is just brutal. And I would like to thank the 2 speakers with the photo evidence from the tracks and all that. Much appreciated. I guess my struggle on playgrounds is that they're closed from November to April. So for 5 months, there's nothing happening on them. So, but I do agree we need to have nice playgrounds because it speaks well for the district and to the public. And they're used in the summer, the off-school time also. So, but I guess on this particular one, I'd go with Ben and not dip further into the fund balance, even though we just did with the track, and we should be consistent, but it's getting very hard to do that. And you make very strong points, and I still say you're going to be a judge someday. I definitely think that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I agree with Tim. I'm not comfortable dipping into the fund balance for the playgrounds, especially because historically this isn't the way that we've funded the playgrounds. They weren't considered a priority one when this project came back to us, and I'm uncomfortable dipping into the fund balance any more than we already have. Sean?
Reconsidering what I had just said, that I actually support funding these playgrounds entirely, I'm going to withdraw my resolution. Because if you're not going to do it all, then let's not do it. Let's kick the can a little bit more on this. So I withdraw my motion.
Okay. So we did have a motion to approve the capital project that's before us here and a second for that. Now we have the caveat, so now do we just need the roll call vote? Neil, Marie, is that?
You've had a motion and a second and a vote, then
Okay, so are there any other comments or questions or discussions on the capital project? Okay, Linda?
Mrs. Frederica?
Yes.
Mrs. Gita?
Yes.
Mr. Bose?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Dr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Slack?
Yes.
Mrs. Tolhill?
Yes.
Thank you, Linda. And the second action item that we have this evening is the board's statement for authorized and available project funds. And so basically, what we're being asked to approve here is that with the money, if the project passes and that money is funded, and we get through all of the priority ones, and we still have money left over, we can move on to priority 2 items. Neil, is that correct, or can you explain that a little bit better than I can?
that's correct. So basically, we have a priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 scheme. What the board is committed to is doing all the priority 1 projects, and that was the action that you just took. We still have a document that demonstrates other needs that are still out there within the district in those other 2 columns. So we've used this in the past capital projects, last couple. We've had this statement, and you never know how pricing is going to come out, we haven't designed any of the work in terms of, sequence structure, how bad things are opening up walls and ceilings and seeing what conditions are. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes we need to spend more money, sometimes we need to spend less money. If at the end of the project and we've completed all the priority 1 projects, if there's money left over in the project total dollar amount, we're able to bring back to the board for their approval a list of items that we feel are priority items that money could be used for. So we're not asking for additional authority to borrow. We're working within the same authority that we had, but still the step is we have to come back to the board, we have to present that list, and it's up to the board whether to approve those items or not within available funds at that time.
Okay, so may I have a motion? I'll do a motion, then we can discuss it. To approve the board statement for authorized and available project funds. Seema, second. Teresa? Okay. Teresa, questions, comments?
I just had a question as to how those items would be chosen.
Similar process to what we used here. Cliff, working with our architects and construction management firm,
Okay.
will look at it, and it could be based on a variety of factors. How well it fits with existing work is one of those. How, the most critical nature of things that have changed over time. That we're sitting here today in 2019. We're 2 years down the road. Did something change considerably and make that a higher priority than it was, or something slid back a little bit? So it's really a relook at that time of everything that's on the list, how much money we have available, and how the critical nature and how it fits with the project in terms of the work that we're already doing.
That's a good question. Other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. And now we have another roll call vote. This is a resolution for the Guilderland Public Library Capital Construction Project, and this is just the board approval to put the library capital construction project on the ballot in May. So may I have a motion to approve the resolution? Judy, second. Teresa, any questions or comments? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Linda?
Mrs. Frederica?
Yes.
Mrs. Gita?
Yes.
Mr. Bose?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Dr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Slack?
Yes.
Mrs. Tolhill?
Yes.
Okay, now we move to board committee reports, audit.
Audit and Finances meeting on April 11th, I believe, right? At April 11th at 8:30.
Business practices.
We are in the process of scheduling a meeting.
Communications.
We have a meeting coming up. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Thursday morning at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
At Linwood.
Coming up real fast.
Yes.
Policy.
We have not yet met.
Okay. And now we move to public comment number 2. Linda, has anybody signed up? Okay. Board issues, ideas, and sharing. Judy?
Just fabulous, fabulous show this
Oh, my
weekend.
God.
Unbelievable what the kids did, and the director and musicians. It was incredible. We're very lucky.
Yeah, I'll second that. The singing was like,
Unbelievable.
yeah, I'm like, I can't believe these are high school
And it
kids
was the whole
singing.
show. I mean, there wasn't any
Yeah.
dialogue. It was all music. And I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, and I was thrilled. I did want to ask Marie, Mr. Maycock had indicated that the parents could get CDs. I wonder if we could get or if I could get a CD anyway. I don't know if everybody wants one. I'd like to have one.
I think if a board member would like a CD of the musical, we could make that happen.
Okay, that's what I was hoping. Thank you. That's my request. I would like one.
Ben?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I know we dealt with a lot of stuff tonight, but I want to bring back up my semi-annual request that we go harder on this effort to come up with a vision for the district and to think about the future. One of the big things for me in considering and struggling and grappling with the capital project was that you know, the world is changing so fast, and we are just barely maintaining school buildings designed for 50 years ago. And, you know, and I would love to have, you know, for our next capital project in, you know, 5 years or whatever, to have like a really exciting vision that people can buy into instead of talking about how our roofs are falling off. And, you know, I just feel like there was so much of that future-ready portion in the first proposal that we sent out, and it was rejected. Some people called it a wish list, but schools shouldn't look like they looked when we were all in school anymore, and we need to demonstrate that to the community, but we need to offer them an alternative. And you know, there's a, you know, just, you know, for example, in the white paper that Marie sent out a couple Fridays ago from Bill Daggett, there's a line in there that struck me. It said, you know, Airbnb facilitates, you know, the most lodging for travelers in the world. It owns no buildings. And Uber provides the most transportation for passengers in the world. It owns no cars. And it reminded me of the fact that the person who teaches most of our children and children throughout the country is Khan Academy, and it has no classrooms. It has, and it's free. And you know, I support our capital projects because our school buildings need roofs, but in 30 years we might not need school buildings, and we really need to get ahead of this thing, I think. So I just want to remind you all that that's still very important work that needs to be done even in the midst of the budget season.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so then we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss issues pertaining to negotiations with the district office administrative personnel. May I have a motion? Barbara, second. Judy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Don't forget your surveys.
Yes.
We also add to that motion, a discussion of future tenure appointments. Let's continue the discussion.
Oh, I thought we were done. We voted on this. We done?
Sure, we can continue to discuss it.
Still discuss it.
I don't understand. We voted on it.
Well, we didn't vote, we took a straw poll. There was no,
Well, the vote would happen, it's a regular session, open session vote that would happen on April 9th now.
So we did vote.
Damien,
Yes.
I have had no video since you switched devices.